Welcome back to Warcraft News, everyone. Today, we've actually got a lot to talk about. So, there's a release date for patch 11.1.5. It's not official, but it is kind of official. That's because Blizzard have actually announced that on April 22nd, guild name changes are moving out of the shop and coming into the game, where they're going to cost 200k gold instead of real money. Now, that's actually one of the advertised features of this patch, which basically means the patch will be almost definitely going live that very week. And if that's not enough evidence for you, there's actually more. The patch is also bringing a Children's Week update, and Children's Week starts the very same reset on the 28th. So there you have it. In under a month, we'll have an entire new patch. It actually does have quite a lot to do. We'll finally be able to get the missing purple Arathi set that looks pretty awesome, but unfortunately, there is a little bit of a concern. Don't worry too much though, because we got the backing of today's sponsor. Squarespace, who are awesome because they just let you get the job done right. Whenever I needed a job site and a game landing page, I went to Squarespace because they just made my life easy. It's fast, cross-device, all while looking fantastic. You, of course, have got their award-winning templates to get started with, but even better, their new design intelligence and blueprint AI guides you through building your own template. It is amazing. You come out at the end with something that's really quite impressive. Then you've got the block-based editor that is super easy to use, and that makes crafting your site so simple. And if you want even more control, Fluid Engine is a game changer that lets you do just that and granularly move elements in your site, but in a way that doesn't make it all explode on mobile, which is great. Basically, everybody should have a killer site that represents them. A good first impression helps you with jobs or even just hosting your portfolio or perhaps your side hustle. And if you are doing business, they have got you covered. Their e-commerce solutions will handle digital products, physical products. They'll hook up with your shipment provider to make all that dead simple. They support courses. They support bookings, be those in person, online, any of that, and they have a host of other features to help you succeed, like recently having proper native video that works with their memberships and their e-commerce pipeline. It's all amazing. So you can get started today at squarespace.com/bellulargaming. You can build your site with a free trial and then send it live with 10% off your first purchase of a site or domain with code BellularGaming. See, the odd thing is this patch launch may not be a massive deal. So Nightfall is coming, that's the world content, and it's solid enough catch-up world content you can do in Hallowfall. But the other major features, the ones that I honestly find exciting, those are probably a bit later. As an example, Horrific Visions are actually flagged on the PTR as a world event with a start date of May 20th. Now that may just be a placeholder, but without solid confirmation that it'll be there as a day one feature, I do think we should assume the worst. Though I can at least allay your fears a little bit. So here's the splash screen. It's been data mined, and it says coming soon for Dastardly Duos. Now we do know that Dastardly Duos is a world event, but it does not say coming soon for Horrific Visions. And then when you take a look at the achievements, we see the new Horrific Visions ones are classified as an expansion feature, I suppose, other than an event. And on top of that, it's got extremely lucrative awards that are tied to the current season, as well as being fairly time-consuming and challenging to fully complete. So with all of that in mind, Horrific Visions being a time-limited world event would honestly make absolutely zero sense. I think it would be a fairly bad idea. Now, there's a world where a staggered launch could kind of make sense. It's something that Final Fantasy XIV does, but I'd certainly say it does that to mixed results. So in a way, in theory, it can be a good tool, staggering things to make sure that people don't miss content, or even to get a partial patch out earlier than usual to buy extra dev time for the other features. But I think for World of Warcraft, it's just not what we're used to, right? And I think if they do it here with Horrific Visions, it would be a mistake. The patch says Horrific Visions on the box. I think it should be there when we get the update. And WoW players are all too familiar with the idea of logging into a patch, especially a big new major patch, on day one, and within 4 hours finding, oh, there's not really a thing to sink my teeth into. I think repeating that with this would really be quite a miss for them. Anyway, that's what we know for now. So April 22nd for Nightfall, and I would say probably Horrific Visions. Blizzard, please make that a definitely and give people an announcement. And of course also the guild name change for gold, if that's what you want. Though speaking of Horrific Visions, Blizzard have confirmed that they're fixing the enchant issue. This is a very big one, and it's good that they're making a fix. So originally, right, Blizzard planned to add the old corruption effects from Battle for Azeroth as weapon enchants. Now, if you weren't there, they were these honestly crazy cool effects, right? And they made patch 8.3 hilariously busted. And I say that in an almost good way. They were sometimes so powerful and broken that it was really fun. So the prospect of getting them back was pretty exciting. except that, as an example, them being enchants made no sense. If they were weapon enchants, then Death Knights would be entirely left out, and they would of course be competing with the existing weapon enchants in the game. Then Blizzard decided to consider them as embellishments, but I mean, we can immediately think of a few downsides there. So ultimately, they've decided to add them into the game as head enchants instead. What that does mean then is that when the patch rolls around, get ready for a huge boost in power. You will have to hit up a few horrific visions to unlock them, but when you do, you can slap them on your head and you can go and absolutely blast things. Obviously, we'll need to see how the balance is, but it could be fairly fun. But certainly, with that new power and the rate of nerfs that we've seen, quite a lot of Mythic Plus could just be holding W and putting out massive numbers, not really worrying about the timer until you get that high. We really need to talk about Mythic Plus, and we've actually got a video coming out real soon about that, but there's stuff to mention now. The short version of things is that Blizzard have just taken the limiter off their nerf bat. So in a wave of hotfixes after this week's reset, they've actually went and nerfed Mythic Plus stuff even more. Now, it's actually not like the huge sweeping nerfs that we've seen before. It's more targeted changes to find rough spots in dungeons and make them easier. Things like, say, adding a line marker to Dark Winds, increasing Bone Spear's cast time, and reducing Giga Zap's tank buster damage by 40%. Yeah, 40, it's a hell of a lot. Now, this is basically them all targeting problem areas so that they're smoothing out the difficulty curve, basically so you're not killed by a surprise spike in difficulty or a bad overlap. And this is a bit of a growing trend. Blizzard are trying to make Mythic Plus basically less frustrating. So how do you keep something being hard but also less frustrating? I think the overall way is to have the difficulty increase as you're doing harder and harder and harder keys, but for it to increase in a way that feels fairly smooth, and within the dungeons, to not have random spikes where it feels like something is just harder than intended. So it really seems that's mostly what they're doing, and so far I'd say it's actually been quite successful. This is something I didn't expect. The Darkmoon Fair has been in WoW for almost 20 years, since patch 1.6 in July 2005. Now, they gave it a major revamp in Kata, they moved it to the Darkmoon Island, but to this day, we've never found out more about it, and that really is weird. They also put more mystery into it with the unique Warlock questline added in Dragonflight, but we still don't know what Silas Darkmoon's connection to the Old Gods is. It's kind of weird, and there definitely is a connection. I mean, just open your eyes. Now, where this is news is that the April trading post is actually Darkmoon themed, and there's some real cool stuff. We've got the topsy-turvy mask set that gives us both Old Gods and Arakoa vibes. We've got the violent Darkmoon charger mount, looks pretty awesome too. And those have got me thinking about the Darkmoon Fair. Something's bound to be coming, and that's because if midnight is the end of the great battle between light and void, then we're running out of time for Blizzard to reveal the truth. That, I guess, Silas Darkmoon is a secret old god, or whatever it is. Basically, Silas has been up to something really sus. We don't know what it is. They've hinted at it for a long-ass time, and, well, with midnight coming, they actually need to give us answers, because that whole struggle is going to be over soon. Well, I gotta say, this is music to my ears. If there was ever any doubt the Season of Discovery Phase 8 is basically Classic Plus, it's gone now. Blizzard have even added around 30 minutes of brand new music to the Scarlet Enclave, so that's just them going and doing dev stuff. I think that's pretty sweet. And they've also, made another reference to the Scarlet Heavy Phase 8 being the final chapter, right? So the end of Season of Discovery, and that's kind of got us all thinking, what's going to be next? Now, quite literally speaking, nobody knows. Of course, depending on the success of the Anniversary Realm, there could be a fresh Season of Discovery, do the journey again. They could totally do that. I imagine it wouldn't be too hard to do that. And there are opportunities in doing that. So much of Season of Discovery was basically made up as they went along and responded to feedback. If they wanted to, they could pretty much do it fresh, but work into their new version of it all of the things that they've learned, which would then let a lot of people who have missed out on it kind of experience it all again as it unfolds. That can include the low-level raids, the rune unlock quests that were real cool. But of course, there is the other option to develop even more classic-like content and fully make it Classic Plus. I really hope they do that, and I've got to say that strategically, a move like that does make a hell of a lot of sense. I mean, how many seasons and various different classic things can we have all going on at once? it will kind of get confusing. I mean, we got Classic Mists of Pandaria. Are we going to do Classic WoD? Like, where does this end? And it also seems that Cataclassic hasn't exactly been the most hyped thing in the universe. I continually actually get messages from people about it being full of bugs. It just makes me wonder, will they try to consolidate a lot of this into its own product? I think if they do that and they focus on the sort of nuts and bolts of Azeroth that have made World of Warcraft great for such a long time, that they could be onto a true winner. I mean, take a look at OSRS. There are examples of this thing working. Okay, time for an update on what's basically the sort of Blizzard successor, Dreamhaven. I say that because Mike Morhaime left Blizzard years and years ago. He founded Dreamhaven, and so far, not really that much has been shown, especially not internally developed stuff. This week, though, that has actually changed. Now, we've already heard of Secret Doors game called Sunderfolk, which is basically what if D&D Combat was like basically Jackbox, you know, the party multiplayer game. So that's kind of cool, and we've actually got a release for it, and that release is next month, April 23rd. That's real quick. But then they finally dropped what the other studio called Moonshot are doing. They're making a game called Wildgate. It's a PvP extraction shooter. I know, many eyeballs have just rolled. It's set in space. It is doing some neat things though. So you've got 20 players in 5 teams of 4 who will scout a map, secure an objective. You'll be fighting both with on-foot first-person combat and then ship-based combat. And you're not just doing regular combat, you're doing things like, you know, refueling, repairing, upgrading your ship, of course, you know, finding gear that will increase your chance of victory, all that stuff. It looks like it has potential, and from what I've heard from playtesters, they're really quite buzzed about it. A bit of me thinks, okay, saturated games market, how are you actually going to get players for that? Which does seem like a tall order, but core game design, you know what? Fair play. It actually seems they've tried to shoot for a fantasy. And at least for now, that is the Warcraft news, but there's a lot more to talk about, and if you want a taste of dastardly duos, well, check out this video next.